Okay, morning everyone. Nice to see you all. I have to admit that I have been slightly anxious about delivering this talk with this kind of title the morning after the England game. So I can assure you this title was set in stone way before it was deemed that England should play last night, and I was desperately hoping that the decision would have been, the outcome would have been slightly different. I think this has been a cracking conference so far, and the thing that's been great so far was Alison's talk in the first day. It panicked me slightly because she started to talk about a lot of things that I wanted to talk about this morning. And it was a cracking presentation, so I had to have something that was going to set me apart. So I came up with this as a first line. I remember very clearly the night I nearly died. And that's quite a sobering thing to say, but it's probably got all your attention. The year was 2006, and I had gone to bed that night not knowing anything of what was going to happen. There was no inkling in my mind what was going to happen, and looking back on it now, the signs were probably there about what was in the offing that night. About 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up, and what I could only say was abject terror. I have never been so scared in all my life. I was sweating like you wouldn't believe, and I could probably have thought that my heart was about to burst through my chest. My arms and my legs were locked in place, my teeth were clenched, and most worryingly, I was shaking like there was no tomorrow. The time went on, and as I managed to try and get control of the shaking, I started to feel like I was about to pass out, and the more I felt like I was about to pass out, the more I started to shake, and it started to get worse and worse and worse and worse. The morning eventually came, and I managed to get downstairs and managed to get an appointment with the doctor. And as I sat in that doctor's surgery, my pulse rate was 140 at rest. The doctor turned to me and says, "There's something wrong." I'd kind of figured that. Over the next 6 to 8 months, I went through a whole battery of tests. I was poked, I was prodded, I was given ECGs, I was given ultrasounds, I was given all manner of tests to try and figure out what was going on. I was getting married in the August, and I didn't know whether I was going to make it down the aisle. Didn't know what was going to happen. Eventually the doctor sat me down and he says, "Andrew, it's stress." Now, for me, back in 2006, stress was something that lazy people got. Stress was something that people said that they had to try and get out of work. And I didn't quite understand it. I thought there must have been a misdiagnosis or something that was going on. I felt very alone at that point, because I felt like I was the only person that was going through this, that there was something wrong with me as a person, that I was stressed. But actually, I'm not alone. There's a staggering statistic that about 1 in 4 people in the UK will have a mental health problem during this year alone. So in a population of about 66 million, there's about 16.5 million of us who will be experiencing something like this at the moment. Statistically speaking, in this audience of about 140, 150, there'll be about 37 of us who are struggling. So have a look around. Who do you think it is? You don't need to put up your hand, you need to point fingers. I'm not asking for a show of hands or anything like that. But the problem with these kind of things is they go unnoticed. They're invisible. But they are a big, big problem. And for us as a community, for us as managers, for us as colleagues of each other, it's something that we need to think about. It's something that we need to try and address, and something we need to think about when we're trying to think about how we build effective digital teams, because we live in an industry that is constantly changing. And for people who are anxious, people who have panic attacks, as I do, that's a scary thing. It's one of the things I love about the industry. Nothing stays the same. It's always changing. But it causes a great deal of stress as well. I put this slide up last year when I was talking about the changes that we're trying to effect at Dundee, when I was trying to talk about the changes in how we deal with web and digital, but there's also different cultural change that we need to have, and we need to start having open and honest conversations. I was very anxious about this talk. until Alison stood up on Wednesday and said her piece. Thought it was very, very brave of her. Thought it was a cracking talk. And it's not easy to do it. But it made it easier for me to start talking about these things. So well done to Alison. So what I want to do, just for the time that's remaining, is go over 3 problems that I experience on a kind of almost daily basis, weekly basis, things that affect me and maybe some things that we can try to get them changed. 3 problems. First one is this, the problem of perfection. Now, if you are not this person, you will probably know this person. They are the person, when you try to get something out of them, it'll come tomorrow, I've just got to finish it. It'll come tomorrow, it's not quite perfect yet, I just need to change it, I just need to tweak this thing while we're here. We live in a world that is chasing after perfection. And I think with the rise of social media, social networking, this is becoming increasingly problematic. Because perfection is actually just an illusion round about us. Instagram, and I love Instagram, the stuff you can find on Instagram with all manner of things is just amazing. But it's just a window into somebody's world through which you're seeing. And the problem with Instagram, and the problem with a lot of these different things, is that as you look, you're not seeing the full picture. You're not seeing all the failures. You're not seeing all the mistakes. You're seeing things that have been set up, things that are not quite real. So let me free you from this and tell you that there is no perfect, right? There is no perfect. And if you're trying to chase perfect as part of your daily work, you'll be constantly disappointed. It wouldn't be IWMW without some fancy quote from some guy who lived ages ago and whatever else. So I've got one, and it's a perfect one, and it says this: perfect is the enemy of good. I don't know if some of you have come across this phrase before, but it's a really good phrase to understand. That sometimes you can do your absolute best work, and it'll not be perfect. There'll always be something that's wrong with it. And we as an industry are probably quite advanced in our thinking about this, because we talk quite a lot about doing low fidelity things, about doing things like minimal viable products, things that are rough and ready, things that are easy to change, things that are easy to move on, so that we can test it, so that we can look at it, so that we can put it out to users and get the feedback back again. Minimal viable products are fantastic things. Get your stuff out there, get it tested, get people looking at it. Don't worry about it being perfect. The longer you focus on being perfect, the longer it'll take you to try and release things. You will make mistakes. You will make mistakes. For me, that has been a liberating thing to understand. You will make mistakes, but that's not a bad thing. Our society is built on people who made mistakes. I had a boss once, and I had done something. I think I deleted the entire website. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person that's ever done that in the world, but I'm pretty sure I deleted the website or something. I needed him to help me to get something back again. And I was convinced I was going to get the sack, right? I was convinced he's going to turn around and say, right, sling your hook, get a move on, get out of the town. And he said this, and this was brilliant. He says, Andrew, he says, I don't mind you making mistakes. Just don't keep making the same mistakes. We need to make mistakes. We need to try and learn from our mistakes. And that's a good thing to do. And this is something that I've realised more and more as I've got kids. I've got 2 little girls, one's 7 and one's 9, and one goes at things 100 miles an hour and just launches herself into it. And invariably she gets it wrong. She picks herself up, she just dusts herself off, and invariably she does it again. But she sometimes learns from mistakes. The other one, the older one, she is sometimes so paralysed by not wanting to make mistakes, she'll not try anything. Make mistakes, people. There's another great quote, and it wouldn't be IWMW without some Apple quote, I suppose. Steve Jobs, back in 1997 at WWDC, he was challenged by somebody asking a question. I think it was to do with the failure of the Open Docs initiative. And basically the guy says, what have you been doing with your time while all these other people have been working hard? And Steve said this, he says, some mistakes will be made, but that's good, because that at least means that decisions are being made. Sometimes we're so paralysed by a fear of making mistakes that we don't release our stuff, we don't get it out there, we don't get people to look at it. So make mistakes. So there we go, that's the first problem of perfection. The second problem, and I was feeling dead chuffed myself here because I've managed to do a wee bit of alliteration, and that's like the holy grail of presenting. The problem of pessimism. And you will know these people, right? You will know these people that are pessimistic, that are negative. Now, I don't know if it's a Scottish thing, right? And I know as a Scot, we have a reputation as being some moaners, okay? I don't know if it's a British thing, because we do like to moan, but we've almost turned it into a national pastime, right? And we think of loads of stuff that we can moan about. And 2018 has been a cracking year, okay? Even just in terms of the weather, it's just been all over the place. We had the big winds to start with, and it was, oh my word, what's going on? Then there was the snow, and the snow was great because everything looked pretty, and then we realised we actually couldn't get out to get food, and it was, oh, will this never end? And then the floods came, and the winds came, the rains came, and I went, oh, well, this winter never end, it's grey and it's dreary, oh my word, and we could do with some sun, and then the sun comes, and we go, oh, it's too hot, we want some wind to cool us all down, and we go right back to the start. We think of these things that are things that we can have a good moan about. Oh, you English with your football teams. This is a complete aberration to us Scots. We know that our football team's rubbish, right? And we actually celebrate the fact that they've done not too badly, because we can have a good old moan about it. Moaning and groaning can be cathartic. It's like a deep breath. It's like a bit of relief. It's like something that goes, I'm not the only one that's feeling this. We can have a moan in our teams, and that's not bad. And when you come to conferences like this, it's good to speak to colleagues who are going through exactly the same things. The problem is, when it becomes the norm, it starts to impact on the productivity of our teams. It starts to impact on what we can do. It starts to suck the life and energy out of any project you're going on. And you can feel it when you go into the room, the negativity that's surrounding it. When I was going through the kind of dark period, when I was going through the anxiety and not knowing whether I was going to survive or not, people would say strange things to me, right? And they would say this, can you not just choose to be positive? Well, if I'd realised it was that simple, I would have done it. They say choose to be positive. When you're going through difficult times, it's hard to see the positive. It's hard to focus on the good things that are going on. But sometimes you do need to choose to be positive. Alison kind of alluded to this in her talk, where she talked about faking it to make it. Make it to fake it. What's the phrase? Fake it to make it. That's a really good idea. Sometimes you need to start the habit in order for it to become a habit. I'm a Christian, and I grew up through the churches and went to Sunday school, and we used to learn a chorus in Sunday school, and this was the first line to it. Count your many blessings, name them one by one. And I turned this into a game when I was going through the difficult times. Every morning, when you get up, think of one thing that you're thankful for. You're not allowed any repeats. It's got to be something new every day. And to start with, it's dead easy, right? Because you can go, well, I'm glad I've got a job. I'm glad I've got a car. I'm glad I've got food. And then it starts to become a wee bit more difficult as you go on. It's like, well, I'm glad that the grass has been cut. And I'm glad that the car's still running. And I'm glad I'm not that stupid driver that's in front of me. You know, think of one thing that you can be positive about. Because the effect that you will have on your team and the people round about you will be dramatic. You will be able to influence people, you will be able to work with people easier if they see you as a positive influence on what they do. And there are people that you know that as soon as they come into the room brightens up, because they're just permanently cheery. And as a Scot, it annoys the life out of you sometimes because you just want to get going. But, there are people who are constantly cheery. Like Claire, she comes into the room, she's constantly smiling no matter what she's going through. She's got this big cheesy grin on her face. It's wonderful. Kat, when we're doing advisory group meetings, is perpetually excited and happy and all this. And it's infectious. So, try that little tip. This is another thing we used to say to me, it's not the end of the world. Well, when you feel like you're about to die, it does feel like the end of the world sometimes. It does, and when you're going through difficult times, and we've all been through difficult times with restructures and rebrands, and we talked last year about how, we've lost friends and colleagues through all the stuff that we've been going through. It does sometimes feel like the end of the world. But the sun will rise in the morning, and it'll only happen for a short period of time. I went on one of these mindfulness courses, and these are wonderful things to go to if you've got a spare couple of hours, and some of them are strange and some of them are very good. But the girl said to me when we were talking about panic attacks, and when you're having a panic attack, I don't know if anybody's had them, but they're scary, right? Your entire body freezes up, you think you're having a heart attack, and you're quite sure it's the end. She says, Andrew, your body can't physically sustain a panic attack for any more than 15, 20 minutes. It'll pass. It'll move on. And it'll get better. Now, it's hard to realise that when you're going through it, but remembering that these bad times will pass and better times will come. And sometimes it'll take days, weeks, months, years, but these things pass. They're transitory. So we've had the problem of perfectionism, we've had the problem of pessimism, and I was trying to think of another P and I didn't quite get it, so I had to fudge it a wee bit. The problem of the imposter persona, and Gareth kind of alluded to this in his talk as well. Imposter syndrome. The feeling that at any time your boss is going to come and knock on your door. Right, Andrew, we found out. 14 years, that's good going. But we found out it's time to leave. You're actually not very good at your job. We saw that mistake that you made. It's time to go. There's a cracking diagram. This is what we sometimes think when we look at people round about us. I don't know what you were like at school, but sometimes when I was at school, I felt like I'd missed a lesson. I felt like everybody else in the class had been at a lesson and I must have been off that day or, whatever else. It was generally to do with social circumstances. I was never quite good. It was always a bit of a strange thing to me. But actually, it's more like the right-hand side. And this is what makes effective teams. Every single one of you have something to bring to the table. If you didn't, you wouldn't be in that position. So when you're coming and when you're participating in the team, it's important to put your views across. I absolutely got what Alison was talking about yesterday when she said she was sitting in governance meetings and she was thinking of all these things that she'd say and she was so scared she couldn't actually say it. I've been there. And I thought I should say this, and I should say that, and I should say the next thing, and then you don't say anything, and invariably somebody else goes and says it, and they look like the smart person. And actually, you thought of about 10 minutes ago. So, the imposter syndrome is a big thing because it can actually paralyse you into not doing these things. So what can you do to try and change your thinking on these things? Well, get outside perspectives on things. So there's a range of stuff you can do in your teams. Get out of your teams and go and work in other departments. Go and be active in open days, in visiting days, and get involved in clearing. Just get out of your department for a wee while and get a wee bit of an outside perspective. Come to conferences like this. I'm preaching to the converted. Where's this camera? Get your teams to go to conferences. Make budget available so that people can come to conferences like this and talk to like-minded people and figure out what's going on. Two things will happen when you send them to conferences. One, they'll find out that they're actually a lot better than they are. Or two, they'll find out how they're doing it, how they should be doing it, and become a lot better than they are just now. It's a win-win situation. So get some outside perspectives. So that's my three problems. That's the three problems that I come across on an almost daily basis. The problem of perfectionism, the problem of pessimism, and the problem of the imposter persona. And these are things that we need to try and have a conversation about as a community. Because I'm betting that there might be some other people in this room who have gone through the same kind of things, who are struggling with the same kind of ideas and problems and difficulties. And we need to support them. Look after your teams. Look after your colleagues. If you see someone struggling, offer them a word of positivity. You might just make that person's day. I've been in lots of different situations where you think the world is ending and you think, I just cannot be going on with this. And one person will come and they will say, well done, Andrew. That was good. And your mood will just soar and you will feel like you can conquer the world. And to you, the person who said that bit of positivity, it will seem like an absolute nothing. It will seem like you did nothing. But you've probably just made a lifelong friend just by offering a word of congratulations. To those of us who are going through these things, please speak up about it. Because like Alison on Monday, I was very nervous until she actually stood up and spoke about it. And actually it made this a lot easier because, I'm not the only person that's going through it. So if you are going through these things, speak up about it. There are a whole raft of helps and things that we can do to try and help you on these things. So it's time for a culture change. It's time for us not to hide these things behind closed doors. It's not time for us to shy away from dealing with these things. We need to deal with them head on because they're only going to get worse. And if you're building effective digital teams, there are things that you need to do. We haven't cracked it at Dundee. I haven't talked about this openly terribly much. This is a kind of start of trying to do some of these things. But as a community, hopefully we can do something about it. Thanks very much.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. I feel a little bit emotional. It's all a bit too much. Brilliant. Any questions or comments from people? We've got time for 2 or 3 before we go into the lightning talks.
Thank you. I thought that was brilliant. I just wanted to say, I'm Padma. I am a content design consultant. And I used to run a team of sort of 60 people immediately and head a wider community of 2,000. And as a manager, I think one of the things you can do is create a culture of permission and create, you are actually all right. And a bit of irreverence, I think, because people follow the lead of whoever's leading them. And I think if you can create, and I thought you did that brilliantly, this sense of permission and this sense of fearlessness. It's okay to be who you are. And you don't have to be this kind of stiff professional character in order to fit in our team. It's okay to be who you are. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Carly? Claire's going.
Carly Hollis, University of St Andrews. I thought it was really inspiring what you were saying about building an optimistic team, and I just wondered if you had any examples of how you've tried to do that at Dundee?
I've tried to do it by being perpetually optimistic, and it doesn't always work. It's about the constant reinforcement of it. My team's sitting up the back, so they can probably answer it better than I can. It's about trying to make sure that when the successes come, that we are celebrating the successes, and I don't do it terribly well. It's about trying to understand what the team is going through as well and trying to help them through that. I don't think I do that terribly well as well. I think from a manager's point of view, one of the things I've learned from looking upwards at my managers is that they will make mistakes as well, and they try to make the best decisions based on the information that they have at the time. But it's not always easy, and you don't always get it right. So, but it is just about trying to make sure that you're there for. If they want to talk about it, then we can talk about it, and we've started to do that.
Hi, Andrew. Brian Kelly, I think we're in at a time of sharing some personal stories, painful stories. So my particular difficult time was in when I was running this conference for the first time on my own when I was at Edgehill University. And it was a really stressful time, and my wife wasn't well. And so one thing I did was I rang up Mike McConnell, where's Mike? And I had a chat about how difficult it was. And Mike was a real star, you know that. And so maybe that's something to do, is amongst the community, the people, the friends you may have, the new friends you're meeting, swap phone numbers and chat, because I think on the phone can be much more valuable in that respect than email.
Yeah. And if people want to talk to me either over email or, and afterwards, I'm very happy to share, horror stories and what I've been through. And because these things pass, and, it's about being open and honest about it. So.
Brilliant. Can we show our appreciation?